requires the interaction of all three energy systems: the ATP-PC system for explosive sprints and jumps, anaerobic glycolysis for repeated high-intensity efforts, and the aerobic system for sustained movement and recovery. This analysis compares centre and goalkeeper demands using movement and heart rate data. The centre position requires a high level of aerobic fitness due to the constant running demands of the role. Centres move through all 3/3 of the court, excluding the shooting circles, meaning they must cover large distances and stay heavily involved in the play. This requires explosive speed for quick transitions and strong endurance to maintain performance. To start the game, the centre is standing in the centre circle using her aerobic system, as there is low intensity and minimal movement. As the whistle blows and the first pass is made, there is an initial sharp burst of energy. She is now using her ATP-PC system to give her an initial burst of energy. This creates an oxygen deficit, which is the difference between the oxygen required for exercise and the oxygen being consumed, typically occurring at the start of exercise or during high-intensity anaerobic efforts. This changing intensity is reflected in the movement data collected across the 3 quarters. In the first quarter, Shannon recorded 28 standing efforts, 28 walking efforts, 43 jogging efforts, 22 running efforts, and 12 sprinting efforts. Jogging was the most frequent movement pattern, indicating that the aerobic system dominates a majority of Shannon's total energy production throughout the quarter. In the second quarter, jogging increased to 50 efforts and running to 26, while sprinting remained at 12. During this quarter, she maintained high involvement with 33 passes, 19 catches, suggesting that she was still able to execute skills effectively despite the increased workload. This suggests greater transitions through the middle of the court, placing more stress on both the ATP-PC system and the anaerobic glycolysis system. By the third quarter, sprinting efforts dropped to 7 and jogging decreased to 37, while standing increased to 40. This shift suggests the onset of fatigue, as the reduction in sprinting efforts and the increase in standing movements indicates Shannon is unable to maintain repeated maximal efforts. Throughout phases of play, she completes repeated high-intensity efforts within short periods. Each sprint relies heavily on the ATP-PC system, but because these efforts are repeated and recovery is limited, phosphocreatine stores would not be fully replenished. As a result, the anaerobic glycolysis system becomes increasingly responsible for resynthesizing ATP during repeated running and sprinting transitions, as phosphocreatine stores are unable to fully recover between efforts, while jogging and walking are fueled predominantly by the aerobic system. Her consistently high pass totals across all 3 quarters further demonstrate how these energy systems underpin her ability to repeatedly present for the ball and distribute it effectively. As the game progresses and high-intensity efforts remain frequent, reliance on the lactic acid system increases. This system rapidly resynthesizes ATP during attacking and defensive transitions. However, extended use results in the accumulation of metabolic byproducts, including lactate and hydrogen ions. While lactate can be reused as an energy source, hydrogen ions increase muscle acidity and contribute to muscular fatigue. The reduction in sprint efforts from 12 in the first 2 quarters to 7 in the third quarter supports this, indicating anaerobic fatigue is likely limiting her ability to sustain maximal efforts. With continued high-intensity efforts and limited recovery, Shannon may approach onset of blood lactate accumulation, or OBLA. This occurs at approximately 4 millimoles per litre. OBLA occurs when lactate accumulates faster than it can be removed, causing fatigue to increase and sprint ability to decrease. Skill execution, such as passing accuracy, catching consistency, and decision-making, may also decline. However, her statistical involvement remained consistent, demonstrating she was still heavily involved in play despite fatigue. This demonstrates that repeated anaerobic efforts significantly increase physiological stress on the centre position, which can reduce sprint ability and skill execution later in the game. A strategy that could assist Shannon in maintaining performance would be the implementation of rolling substitutions, allowing brief recovery to replenish ATP-PC stores and assist with lactic acid removal. Eventually, in the final quarter, Shannon moved to wing defence. This requires covering 2/3 of the court rather than the full court. This change likely occurred due to fatigue from the previous 3 quarters and allowed fresh players to maintain intensity in the centre position. The goalkeeper's role is characterised by short, explosive defensive efforts rather than continuous court coverage. Movement data shows a high proportion of low-intensity standing and walking efforts compared to sprinting, highlighting the reactive nature of the position rather than sustained aerobic workload. Compared to the centre, Abby works at a sub-maximal intensity, meaning the dominant energy system is the aerobic system. In the first quarter, she recorded 55 low-intensity efforts, which is standing and walking, compared to 29 high-intensity efforts, running, jogging, and sprinting. A similar pattern occurred in the second quarter, with 58 low-intensity efforts and 38 higher-intensity efforts. This distribution shows most movements allow adequate oxygen delivery to working muscles, meaning ATP can be resynthesized primarily through the aerobic system. These recovery periods also allow metabolic byproducts to be removed and help maintain performance. Although the goalkeeper completes fewer total efforts in the centre, the efforts that occur are highly explosive. Abby recorded 8 sprinting efforts in the first quarter and 6 in the second, likely associated with rebounds, intercepts, or closing shooters. These movements require immediate energy and therefore rely on the ATP-PC system, which rapidly resynthesizes ATP for maximal efforts lasting only a few seconds. While the centre recorded more sprint efforts overall, the goalkeeper's sprints occur within a smaller playing area and are typically reactive bursts rather than transitional runs. The difference in jogging efforts further highlights the positional contrast. The centre recorded 43 and 50 jogging efforts across the first 2 quarters, whereas Abby only recorded 10 and 12. This demonstrates that the centre relies heavily on continuous aerobic movement to transition the ball, whereas the goalkeeper experiences longer recovery periods between explosive defensive contests. As a result, the goalkeeper has significantly greater recovery time between explosive movements. Following each sprint or jump, Abby's phosphocreatine stores would temporarily deplete. If another effort occurred before full recovery, the body would begin relying on the lactic acid system to re-synthesize ATP. However, because the goalkeeper experiences frequent recovery periods, there is generally sufficient time for PC stores to be replenished through the aerobic system. This reduces hydrogen ion accumulation and delays muscular fatigue compared to positions that perform repeated high-intensity efforts with minimal recovery. This lower physiological strain is reflected in the goalkeeper's statistical involvement. In the first quarter, Abby recorded 5 passes, 2 catches, and 2 interceptions, while in the second she recorded 6 passes, 3 catches, 1 interception, and 2 rebounds. These statistics suggest her high-intensity actions occur intermittently when the ball enters the defensive circle rather than continuously across the court. Overall, Abby's performance demonstrates that the aerobic system dominates the goalkeeper's total energy contribution, as the frequent low-intensity movements allow greater oxygen delivery and recovery between explosive efforts. When explosive defensive movements occur, energy is supplied by the ATP-PC system, with limited reliance on the anaerobic glycolysis due to the longer recovery opportunities in this position. To understand how physically demanding each position was, my movement statistics and heart rate data were compared to the physical demands of competitive netball. While the heart rate monitor provided clear evidence of workload intensity, factors such as shorter quarters and limited substitutions must be considered when interpreting the results compared to professional players. A major limitation was the reduced quarter length. The games during data collection were 10 minutes per quarter rather than 15 minutes played at the elite level. This shorter duration decreases total physical strain as players are not required to maintain high intensity movement for as long. Additionally, data was only gathered from 1 quarter in each position. In my centre quarter, I recorded 26 passes and 21 catches, showing constant involvement in transitional play. This aligns with Shannon's data, where she recorded 33 passes and 19 catches. However, Shannon recorded 37 to 50 jogging efforts and 22 to 26 running efforts, whereas my data showed 23 jogging efforts and 15 running efforts. This difference is likely due to the reduced quarter length and lower overall game intensity compared to the elite competition. Shannon completed 12 sprint efforts in both the first and second quarters, compared to my 9 sprints. If this is adjusted for a full 15-minute quarter, my estimated sprint would be approximately 13 to 14, slightly higher than Shannon's. My heart rate data supports the demanding nature of the centre, with an average of 160 beats per minute, 83% heart rate max, and a peak of 199 beats per minute, which is 98% of my max heart rate, placing me predominantly in zones 4 and 5. With only 10 standing efforts, recovery time was limited, meaning repeated high-intensity movements increase reliance on the ATP, PC, and lactic acid systems. Overall, over longer match duration, this could lead towards obler and greater fatigue, similar to Shannon's reduction in sprint efforts from 12 to 7 by the third quarter. In contrast, my goalkeeper data showed lower overall movement volume. I recorded 12 passes, 10 catches, 3 intercepts, and 3 rebounds, reflecting the defensive and reactive nature of the role. Movement statistics showed 6 sprints, 9 standing, and 11 walking efforts, demonstrating greater recovery opportunities between explosive contests. While sprinting and rebounding rely on the ATP system, the increased rest periods allowed more complete phosphocreatine replenishment, reducing reliance on the lactic acid system. My heart rate data also reflects this lower intensity, with an average of 120 beats per minute, which is 64% max heart rate, and a peak of 173, which is 85% of my max heart rate, placing me primarily in zones 2 and 3. Overall, the centre position carries a higher total workload, greater movement frequency, and sustained cardiovascular strain compared to the goalkeeper. While both roles require anaerobic power, the centre experiences significantly greater cumulative fatigue because of the repeated high-intensity transitions required across all thirds of the court.